Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes I just laugh a lot. And okay, a friend of mine will say, he's a 14-year-old neighbor. He says, "Can you tell me what the Fed is?" And, I'm out walking the producer, Jackson, and I give him, like a 2, 3 minute spiel. He goes, "That's great. Can you do a YouTube video on it so I don't have to write it down?" So, Todd, this is for you. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell. This is my new way of teaching. Kids flag me down or come off the bus and say, "Hey, can okay." So the Fed, that's just short for the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm going to try to do this just like I told him. Now that's a misnomer because it's none of the above. It's not part of the federal government. It's independent. Okay, it's not a reserve. It doesn't hold anything in its vaults. Well, it doesn't have any vaults. And you can't go down there, put money in an account, or get a check cash. It's not a bank. So it's, you know, more DC hokum, misnomer, of course. And then Todd would say, "Well, yeah, but what do they do?" And I said, "It's interesting that you say they, because there are they. There are, you know, regional governors. They elect a chairman. The chairman currently is, remember this, Todd, Jerome Powell. Okay, and they decide, what does the Fed do? The Fed decides to lower or raise interest rates to banks. And from there, the banks decide what interest rate they're going to charge you. And usually it's like a 1 to 2%, above that. Because we live in a capitalist society and we want to make money. So that's what the Fed is. And it's in Washington, D.C. Now, another thing they do is they may not print the money directly, but they are the ones who decide when to add currency to the money supply. Okay. Now, that's Todd's answer for the Fed. Now, Todd, you asked another thing. God, GDP. This is good economic stuff. Why a junior high, middle schooler has to know this? I don't know. GDP, gross, which means all, domestic, which means in the United States, product. Now that's the stuff we manufacture, all the stuff we sell, all the services rendered, like what were we talking about, Tom? Microsoft, online gaming, Netflix, all that. It's just it's the economic activity of our nation, the whole thing. So GDP. That's when they get on NBC and start talking about. That's what they mean. Everything, everything. Okay. Now, don't forget. Oh yeah. What else? Inflation. Now, inflation, Todd. This takes period of time. Usually, they aim like about a year, 12 months. So, inflation is the rate of a price of items or goods or service that things go up. Ideally, according to the Fed, they like to see an inflation rate of right around 2%. But they take a lot of statistics to make this decision. One is wages, which is what you get paid an hour or your salary, and comparing that to inflation, work stoppages, things like that, and consumer price indexing. And they decide, the stock market's great. It's not just one thing. Jobs reports, which I gotta tell you the truth, lately the Department of Labor kind of letting us down on that. 12,000 last month, and I'm fearful there'll be a negative adjustment just like the other 2 months, and jobs created. But that's it. Now, before we finish up on economics 101, remember we live in a system that is capitalist, and one of the foundations of that is supply and demand. If nobody wants it, you're not going to be able to sell it. So that's where supply chain disruptions, strikes on docks, all that stuff plays into it. So if you have a lot of cars to sell, like on a car lot, you got to move those. So you might throw in some, incentives, attempt to get a lower interest rate, which is sometimes kind of hokum, but they'll make up something and say, we'll pay your first 6 months interest rate, which, ends up being like what, $14, something like that. But the higher amount of supply you got usually means a lower price you can charge. If you got something really good and you only got one or two of them, well, whatever the market can bear, or whatever you can get. When we had housing shortages, there were such things as bidding wars. People would supplement. They would submit bids, 5 and 10% over the asking price to get that house. Now it turned out some of these were just not regular people, but like investments groups. But that's just another thing. So give me 1 minute. Okay, so Todd, what's one of the tools that the Reserve Bank can do to control inflation? Prayer. Prayer is always good. Usually it's limiting money, or sometimes it's nothing the Fed can do. Sometimes the government does too much. Sometimes the government can attempt to stimulate the economy by spending. Not always a good idea. According to MIT study, in 2022, government spending was directly related to a staggering inflation rate of about 17% and an upward interest rate of almost 14%. So government spending, not always a good thing. And the application type of thing is not always good. So it's just got to be needed. So I hope that helped, Todd. You got it here now whenever you need it. So good luck. Also, you asked me one other thing. What was it? Give me a second. I'm old. I forget these things. Yeah, the answer is Teddy Roosevelt or Harry Truman. Two of my favorites. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I'll answer someone else's question.